All right, hello and welcome everyone. We will be getting underway in just a moment, so please hang tight while we give folks a chance to join today's webinar. While we wait, feel free to drop a quick hello in the chat. Perhaps let us know where you're joining from today. For my part, I'm joining here from Prince Edward Island on the east coast of Canada, where we've had a bit of a blizzard the last couple of days. So I do hope you're all keeping warm out there.
Jeff, you're a neighbor, my friend. I'm just in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Hey, Perry.
Awesome, folks. It seems we're still trickling in, so we'll just give it one more moment before kicking off here. But welcome, everyone. All right, seems like we have a good audience. So good morning and good afternoon, or depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you for setting some time aside today to join us, whether you're a Function Point customer or a Function Fox customer, or perhaps you're hearing about us for the first time. We're glad you're here for our first Thought Leadership webinar of 2026. And as is tradition at this point, we are kicking off the year with a dive into our findings from our 2026 Creative Industry Report, which for context is a data-driven look at what agencies are experiencing right now across topics such as revenue, pricing, AI adoption, workload, operational performance. This report is built from polling data gathered directly from agencies in our community. So today isn't about theory, it's about what your peers are actually seeing on the ground, what stands out as the top traits of high-performing agencies and what that signals for the year ahead. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Alec McLeod, and I am product manager here for both Function Fox and Function Point products. And I'm going to be moderating today alongside my colleague, Sean Harris, our Director of Customer Experience at Function Software. Sean, how are things on your end?
No complaints over on this side, Alec. Thank you so much for being here as usual. And welcome to everybody that's joined us so far. Welcome to the panelists today. We've got a really great series of slides to go through.
Well, awesome. Just quickly, I'm going to power through a couple of housekeeping items, Sean. Yes. First, just want to say we welcome your questions in the chat at any time. I do want to be clear, this is a moderated discussion between Sean, myself, and our illustrious guest panelists. So while we might not have the bandwidth to respond in real time, we have reserved some time for Q&A towards the end, at which point we will be able to address your questions directly with our panel. And then the second point here, a reminder that today's webinar, as always, is being recorded, and a link will be sent up shortly after our webinar. And you will also see it on our YouTube channel afterwards too. So you can find all of our fantastic previous leadership webinars there as well. But with that, Sean, sorry, go ahead. It's all you, man.
No problem, buddy. All right, Alec, thank you so much. Right, folks, so in terms of what we are going to be covering today, for those of you that have joined us before, this is a little bit of a departure. Generally speaking, what we're doing is sort of taking a look at data from the last year. We run this every single year, and we've done this for ages at this point, which has given us an absolute tranche of data that we can start pouring through. So for the first time this year, and this will be a continued trend for us, we're actually going to be analyzing a few years worth of data today, just so we can really see where the trends are going. So as Alex said, it's not really just about the numbers. We are going to be speaking with our panelists today that really have a pulse on what's happening in the industry in general. In terms of how we formulate this, I believe this year we surveyed over 250 some odd different groups. Lots of groups have been, around 4 ages. It really good mix, but yeah, essentially we'll just be going through what we have on the agenda today. So looking at the data, doing what we call an operational reality check. So sort of taking a look at some of the trends and best practices that we can be incorporating. And focusing really in on the theme of today, which is experimentation to mastery. We'll get into that, but sneak peek, taking a lot of looks at how AI is being used and things that we can do to sort of scaffold that. All right, folks, without further ado, what I'm going to do is introduce our panelists here. And you know what? I'll actually get them to introduce themselves. So Craig, why don't we go ahead and start with you, my friend?
Yeah, hello. My name is Craig Cardolino. I'm the director of marketing and operations at TRG Multimedia. We are a content creation production studio. So we work with brands all across the world, global brands here in the US and all over. And what we do is we provide your creative strategy, your photo, video, CGI, AI, whatever the case may be, in terms of your marketing dollars, where your assets are being created is here. So we have a 160,000 square foot studio. We have a sound stage. We have a virtual production stage, 40 plus customizable sets. So it's a pretty big operation out here in Cleveland, Ohio. And as always, I am extremely honored to be asked to be a part of this. And I know one of these days you guys are going to get sick of me, but until that day, I'm going to keep showing up. So thank you for having me.
We are going to continue asking you, Craig. You always give a wonderful insight into just how things actually work on the ground. So it's always appreciated to have you here. Next on the roster, folks, we have Lori Mikas, a consultant, or the consultant, as I like to say, capital T, from Second Wind. Lori, do you want to give us an introduction?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Had a moment to scan the attendee list and lots of familiar names. So it's nice to see those of you that I know and those that I don't know. Nice to have a chance to spend a little time with you. This is my third or fourth webinar with Function Fox over the years, and I always enjoy doing these. Just a few words about Second Wind for those of you who don't know. We are a membership-based organization that serves smaller to mid-sized agencies specifically. So anything you need to help you do business better, grow your business, train your people. We offer consulting, content, forums, groups, etc. Really to help you move forward. So I'm involved with agencies on a daily basis and really look forward to sharing what I've learned from our member agencies over the past months with all of you here today as well. So nice to be here, Sean, and thanks for the moment of introduction.
Of course, Lori, always an absolute pleasure to have you here. You're just wonderful in terms of just giving us those best practices and letting us know that we're on track. So it's always an absolute pleasure. And folks, those of you who, again, have seen us before, we have a new person on the roster today, and this is Julie Ford. Julie, I can't do it justice as well as you can, so why don't you go ahead and tell us exactly what you do? It's a wonderful organization, but yeah, moment to shine, my friend.
Thank you. I'm the newbie here. My name is Julie Ford. I am the Executive Director at the Digital Advertising Alliance of Canada, often shortened to DAC or DAAC. I'm based in Toronto. We are a national self-regulatory body that supports responsible digital advertising in Canada. We are best known for the Ad Choices program. That is the blue icon you see in the corner of digital ads. That is actually a privacy notice to you. We are not an advertising company. That's a privacy notice that a whole bunch of different large brands, ad tech providers, publishers, agencies are using on their ads to notify you that the ad is being placed based on your personal information. Now, I represent the Canadian version of this program, but we have a sister organization in the United States. We have a program in the EU and other jurisdictions worldwide. And where I sit, my perspective comes from the intersection between marketing, technology, and privacy. So we, as I said, work with very large brands, large agencies, publishers, ad tech companies, and we collaborate with a whole bunch of leading associations in Canada that oversee these advertisers and marketers and agencies. So my perspective comes from these multiple faceted perspectives of who sits on our board of directors, all of the participants that are part of the Ad Choices program. And so hopefully my high level view will be a nice complement to the other speakers today.
Julie, thank you so much. Couldn't have said it better myself. Folks, that's really what today is all about. What you'll notice is that we have three wonderful panelists representing different segments of the industry in general. Craig has his feet on the ground, works with a very successful group, has some amazing best practices to share with us. He's in the trenches day to day. Lori gets to work sort of at that mid-level, advising small to medium agencies. She's seen it all. She's heard it all. A voice of trusted experience. And then Julie sort of at the macro level, really being able to take a look at the industry in general. And then us as the vendor, right? I think it's a really interesting 4-point perspective for us to dive into today. So really looking forward to the conversation. The one thing I will say, and I always try to preface this conversation with it, although this is branded with Function Points, Function Fox, Function Software, this isn't about our product today. This is our opportunity to give back. We run these thought leadership webinars 4 times per year. Both Craig and Lori have been wonderful in terms of volunteering their time to help us. Lots of other folks have been on our panels as well. Julie, again, it's our first time, but really thrilled to have her here today. But the reason why we do this is because this is the industry that we love. I had moved away from this for a while. I've come back. Alec has been involved in this industry for ages at this point. This industry has given us everything we have. It's literally put a roof over my head. We owe it to the industry to make sure we're having these conversations and we're doing what we can to be good stewards. So that's really what today is all about, folks, is just making sure that we're surfacing the conversation. All right, folks, let's go ahead and move into the conversation today. What we're going to be doing is taking a look at a lot of data that has come, again, from our industry report this year, and cross-referencing that with some of the data that we've collected over the past few years. We've used a 3-year trend line this time, just because it is a nice, simple number to use. The charts don't get too messy, to be honest with you, but it starts showing some interesting trends. So as we go through these, we're going to give our panelists a chance to chime in with their thoughts. And yeah, we'll go from there. So folks, first thing we're looking at here is our revenue performance, and this is a 3-year trend. This is what we're seeing in the industry in general. This was one of the first things that really struck us this year when we were taking a look at what the respondents had noted. So if we take a look at revenue growth, we can see from 2023, 2024 to 2025, there's been a consistent downward trend. The inverse of that, in terms of revenue declining, we can see that that is obviously starting to tick up. From 2024 to 2025 alone, there was 11 percentage point deterioration in just that 1 year. Now, we know there's been some challenges this year. There's been economic headwinds. There's been a lot of just turmoil in general in the industry. And this is really sort of jumping out to us at this point. What we heard as well is, though, there's also been a fundamental change in how clients are purchasing creative services. Gone are the days where it was simply, hey, let's get a brochure made or let's create a website. More and more folks these days are asking about strategy. They're really trying to hone in and get the most that they possibly can. The first question I'm going to ask is actually going to be to Craig, sort of looking at these numbers here. Your group is large enough to have, and we were just talking about this, you guys do have diversified revenue streams, but how did you navigate 2025? And was there any specific operational changes that you had to make when you saw some of this pressure building?
Yeah, it's been crazy. So, I mean, AI is just throwing everything for a loop, really. People are assuming that AI is easy and it's cheap, and they want to throw a lot of their dollars into AI, and they're using that in a lot of places where sometimes an expert used to be used. So really what we're seeing is how to navigate these AI waters. And to be quite frank with you, and we'll probably get into it later, it's being a little bit more challenging than I think a lot of people understand. So I think that mixed with a lot of the economic uncertainty has really caused a lot of the companies to kind of hold back the marketing dollars. And what we're finding is they are spending less. And that has been pretty much the case all of last year. So it's all about diversifying, getting more revenue streams, and really trying to be as efficient as possible in the projects that you're getting. Do things quicker, do things faster, get your profit margins higher.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much. Julie, I wanted to put this to you actually, because you sort of sit at that macro level, that 10,000 foot view. Are you seeing this with all the agencies that you see as well? Or, is this something sort of more specific that, maybe with our cohort of folks? Do you think this is industry wide?
I do think it's industry wide. And a big example would be the Omnicom IPG merger, where you suddenly saw a whole bunch of very talented people out of a job because of duplication in roles. So there's some consolidation happening at the high level as well. I'm not surprised at these results, and I am too also interested in how AI has been used in creative shops, because I do see that conversation happening amongst the associations that I've been working with as well. And not to put the cart before the horse, but I do see that in your report, your respondents say that they use AI daily. I think it was 54% say they use AI daily, which is surprising and showing you how fast everything is moving. And so, are you going to be testing this out at your organization as well? For those on the call, you probably already are. So just making sure you have some safeguards in place as well in terms of how you integrate these types of tools, because you don't want to be sharing your clients' information out there very broadly. Sorry, I'm rambling at the moment, but this is not surprising. The stats here, it's shocking, but hopefully sobering, and we can all move on from knowing that things aren't growing right now. So what are we going to do to reverse this?
My dad likes to say, and I know it's a cliche right across the board, but if you can't name it, you can't fight it, right? So that's kind of the purpose of showing this data in the first place. It's not to paint a grim picture, but if we take a look at it, if we can name the problem, we can start tackling it. Lori, from your point of view, getting kind of specific, when you're advising an agency that has been experiencing revenue decline, and candidly, it looks like most of them have been, what's the first place that you tell them to look? Like, is it the pricing? Is it the client mix? Is it what they're offering as services, or is there something else?
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately all of the above, but we want to take action immediately if we find ourselves in a situation like this. So I think the first step is to really take a hard look at your P&L and determine, are there ways to kind of offset this decline quickly? Are there expenses we have? Are there changes we can make without necessarily jumping right to personnel? Although this is a good time to evaluate and determine, are we making the most of our personnel, and do we have the right seats or the right people in the right seats? So take a hard look at the P&L, and can we offset this immediately? Then I think we have to look at efficiency and slippage. Are we over-serving? Are we not being paid for billable hours? Some of it is not just clients pulling back on budgets, but some of it is also how we work and maybe not maximizing our billable hours internally. And then I think, we have to look at our hourly rates as well. Are they high enough to cover our costs and to provide a profit? So I think there are some things internally that you can look at, as well as ultimately, what are our margins on certain service lines that we offer? Should we be pushing those because those are our higher margin, capabilities, et cetera. So eventually you're going to want to look at everything, but I'd say make moves that can quickly offset that decline. And of course, you can't forget about new business in this equation as well.
Sure. All right, thank you so much for the insight. That is actually a lovely segue into the next data point that we're going to look at, the pricing conversation, right? Generally speaking, across the industry, there's usually a price increase on a yearly basis. So that's sort of come to be expected. This year was certainly an outlier. We had more than 75% of respondents stating that they raised their prices either less than 5% or not at all. What we're seeing is that agencies are really taking a defensive posture in terms of that price increase, which does obviously correlate with the decline in revenue there. But it is a dangerous cycle. We've got declining revenue plus flat pricing. Really what that tells us is that we're seeing a lot of margin compression at this point. Lori, I'm going to put it back to you. If you've seen pricing strategies across dozens of agencies, I'm sure. What do you think separates those who successfully raise rates in 2025? And again, it's only 25% of those from the 75% that was only able to, marginally nudge it up or didn't touch anything at all.
Yeah. I mean, my bet is that those that did not institute a rate increase, and it is a high number, probably are not very regular about instituting a rate increase. One thing I've learned over the years in this industry is that agencies do shy away from those conversations with clients. So we see years and years go by without an increase in rates. And I think the only way to kind of combat that is to regularly review your rates every year, determine if they're providing what you need, covering overhead, allowing room for profit, and making a decision that you are going to address this each year internally first, and then as appropriately with clients. I think incremental increases over the long term really allow us to kind of stay current with our rates and feel more free to have those conversations with our clients. When we don't do it, and then we try to institute a rate increase after a long time, especially when conditions are like they are now, it makes it very difficult to have those conversations. We don't want to lose any more business. We don't want to turn clients off to us. This is not the ideal opportunity to increase rates. So, if you're doing it all along incrementally, you're going to be in a better position than kind of doing it sporadically over the years.
100%. I mean, just you explaining it that way, it almost feels like the world's worst slingshot pendulum, doesn't it? I mean, like, you're not raising it, you're literally just getting that whiplash effect every time you do.
Yes.
I can see that being very damaging. Craig, just because you've got your feet on the ground here, how do you approach these conversations internally? Like, I'm not going to ask you guys if you raise prices, but when you are discussing your pricing strategy, what sort of process do you guys use for deciding both when and how to increase rates, especially in a market like this?
Yeah. So a lot of times, from the production side, really, the competition that we're getting, especially for something like CGI, is overseas, right? If you are going to get your CGI from overseas, usually it's going to be pennies on the dollar. And how do we compare or compete with that? So really, what we've seen ourselves doing is kind of adjusting what we do in CGI and not going for these jobs that can be easily done in countries overseas that can be done for pennies on the dollar, and going more towards higher end VFX or bigger animation pieces that are a little bit more difficult. And when we move and kind of shift into that market, we're finding less of this comparison. But really, it's kind of driving a pretty big shift in strategy of what kind of work are we going after. Because if you're trying to compete with overseas prices, sometimes it's a race to the bottom. And really, at a certain point, it's just not even worth it.
Fantastic. What I'm hearing there is that, it's really about mastering what you do at this point. Instead of just chasing absolutely everything around, it really is about focusing on that thing that you are exceptional at, and then moving up market with that. Does that kind of capture that, Craig?
Yeah, that captures it, and also going for higher value. So things that are valued at a much higher rate, I think then is something that makes a lot more sense to us, because we can do it right, and it's hard to do it for that much cheaper rate. Where if you're just looking at like a single image in CGI or something, it's pretty easy. The tools are getting easier. The people are talented throughout the world, and they can do it cheaper. There's no use in us at the scale that we are here to try and go after that. So we have to kind of shift our focus to more of that higher end VFX type of larger broadcast type work.
Awesome perspective, Craig. Thank you so much as usual. Alec, I'm going to pass it over to you for the next part of the conversation here, which is speaking directly to billability and utilization.
Yeah, and I want to start here because I think it's something that might look subtle at first glance, but is actually quite important. So in 2024, as you can see from this slide, we saw a spike with both metrics. They both trended upwards. And to us, there was kind of a sense that agencies had regained some discipline after a turbulent few years. Perhaps operational focus was paying off, but as we can see in 2025, that improvement actually didn't hold. We found that billability dropped 8 percentage points year over year, with both billability and utilization returning to those 2023 levels. So what does this mean? Well, it's billability is really revenue realization. So you can have a fully staffed team, you can have people working hard, you can even feel busy, but if the hours aren't billable, then revenue doesn't materialize. So we might interpret from this that agencies are doing more non-billable work, maybe more pitches, internal initiatives, or experimentation with tools like AI, or perhaps more over-servicing. But with that in mind, I kind of want to direct this first to Lori. You spoke to this while we were discussing revenue performance, but when you see low billability within an agency, what are the usual culprits here? Like, is it poor time tracking? Is it too much over-servicing, or is it something else?
Yeah, I mean, definitely poor time tracking, too much over servicing, I think are two of the usual culprits. I also think, though, we can't overlook our estimating process. I do think that, everything we do starts with our input and with our estimating. And if we don't have those two processes in alignment, you're never going to be able to make up for that along the way. It'll be very difficult to meet your numbers and maintain profitability if you've already started out in a deficit. So yes, poor time tracking, too much over servicing contribute to that. But I think many times we have to get to the root of it. And that is, are we charging enough from the beginning to make sure that we can cover our time in how we are servicing this client? So make sure that as you improve processes and review things, you are looking at your input process and your estimating process to ensure you're starting from a place of achievability to begin with.
Great point, Lori. Thank you. I am going to jump ahead a little bit because I know, this is a great discussion. We are running a little bit behind here. So I'm going to go ahead to talk about one of the main bullet points, which is AI adoption. And it's kind of already been hinted at by our panelists, but I think this is perhaps the most dramatic shift in the entire report. So in 2023, our agency polling found that, as many of you will probably agree, that AI was largely curiosity driven. So experimental, still effectively a small group of early adopters. But in 2024, we saw major AI tools become mainstream. And as a result, in that last year's report, 67% of agencies reported using AI weekly or daily. But in 2025, it's 87%. To be clear, this is not an incremental change. This is like a structural shift in how work is getting done. What's more, roughly half of agencies are actively encouraging AI integration with their teams. Now, with that said, increased adoption has also brought quality concerns. In fact, AI quality anxiety has risen 27% year over year. Might seem like a paradox, but I think there's been a broader cultural awareness of AI quality concerns in the past year. In fact, I think AI slop was Merriam-Webster's word of the year last year. But the headline here is still that AI tools are evidently no longer optional or fringe. There's an expectation from clients. And again, this is an embedded part of the agency workflow. So let's unpack that with a couple of questions. I do want to go to Lori again first. You're seeing how different agencies approach AI. What separates those that are using it effectively from those that are just using tools without real impact?
Yeah, and I think this is interesting because I have seen just a large breadth of how agencies are learning about AI and adopting and using AI. Those that I think are having the most success are those that are making a plan for understanding how AI can really benefit the agency versus kind of leaving the door open to say, well, experiment. I mean, I think experimentation is important, but in our work environment, if we really think about where AI can help us and roll out a plan for our employees to adopt it in a meaningful way versus kind of letting everyone do what they want to do, I think that we can get a bigger impact. I mean, I'll just give you a quick example. There is an agency in Second Wind that I spoke to that is requiring that their employees spend a certain amount of time each day on AI with a particular purpose in mind for how we're going to use it and evaluate tools and incorporate those into what we do. So I think those that have a plan and some structure around adopting AI are going to make out better in the long run than just kind of opening the door to say, do what you feel is right, use it how you feel is right. Just like anything else in our lives, we have to have a process around that. So I think that is beneficial to moving forward in this new frontier of AI.
Thank you, Lori. And I want to direct the next part here to Craig. I think, speaking of process and getting to that quality concern, at TRG, do you have AI guidelines, training, quality controls in place? Like what's working and what's not working?
Yeah, so I think just like everyone else, we're figuring it out as we go, and we have been for a few years now. And I think there's kind of two different AI uses. There's like the general day-to-day helping it, using it as like a tool for other things, and then we have the second, which is we are doing full AI commercials. We're doing full AI photography shoots with hundreds and hundreds of assets. And how do we get these types of AI jobs to be profitable? And we're finding more and more that it's very difficult because the lack of control that you have in terms of imagery or video is just exponentially more difficult. You don't have the control. We did a blog post a few months ago about the Coca-Cola ad that came out that was all AI. And when you look at the amount of work that went into it, the number of artists, the hours put into it, and the overall cost, it's more expensive than if you would have shot it practically. So sometimes we're finding that this is not easier, this is not quicker, and more importantly, it's not cheaper as it is right now. A year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, will it be? Nobody really knows. I think we all kind of assume it will be, but the challenges that we're coming across are quite difficult to overcome because you just don't have the control anymore. All you're doing is typing into a prompt and hoping that what you typed resonates and comes back. In terms of the tools and things like ChatGPT and helping you write emails or things like that, internally we have a technology and an AI committee, and basically what we do is we meet weekly and we go over some of the challenges the company has, some of the challenges that the departments have, and we try and figure out ways that we can help using AI. But because it is so dangerous, and dangerous is a maybe a strong word, but it is so powerful, we're keeping it contained to just that committee right now, and everything has to go through them, and then we release it more full scale. And that committee is easier to kind of keep safeguards on. I think once you kind of unleash it throughout an entire company, it's a powerful tool, and the safeguards become exponentially more difficult to keep in place, and we haven't had to cross that bridge yet.
Well, that's really interesting, and I'd actually be curious to get insight from our audience at large. Greg has just spoken to having safeguards in place, specifically having a committee, but within your agencies, do you have AI guidelines, training, and quality controls in place? Please let us know. Feel free to share in the chat. But with that, I'm going to move over to kind of the operational reality with a look at over-servicing. So this year's industry report found that 76% of agencies still provide unpaid services or deliver beyond scope, which is almost at par with what we saw last year as well. The majority of folks, I think, indicated too that this is driven by small client requests that just add up over time. And AI plays a role in this too. As we're talking about productivity increases from AI, when work becomes faster, expectations can rise. And when turnaround improves, clients may assume that flexibility increases. I think as Craig even mentioned earlier, I think clients may assume that AI is easy and cheap. We'll talk about key traits of high-performing agencies a little bit later, but I will say that agencies that are breaking this cycle are not necessarily saying no more often. They're tracking more rigorously, they're documenting scope clearly, they're quantifying additional work, they're working more efficiently. So let's talk about that discipline. I think with maybe time for one more question here, I'll direct it to Julie. In your conversations with agencies, do you feel over-servicing is just accepted as the cost of doing business, or are folks finding ways to break the cycle?
Great question. Unfortunately, I think so. At agencies, you're being asked to do so much more these days. There's so many more channels. You've got connected TV, short and long form video, social media, TV, print, out of home. You're also being asked to navigate each of these platform changes, which can change on a dime, and it may have very specific needs. On top of integrating AI, because it's the hot thing to do right now. And I noticed in the report, a lot of the agencies are using it for copywriting, which makes perfect sense. And then building those internal efficiencies. And then, of course, there's the data governance and privacy expectations of end users. If you are in the digital space, that's not something new. It's very, very much part of the conversation, especially with media agencies. And you're always trying to constantly prove your ROI. And I can imagine it's exhausting, particularly for smaller agencies. And I understand that clients don't want to pay more, but I think you really have to be diligent in the health of your team and the time that you spend with your clients, and ensure that you have mutual respect. Just overall trends, I'm seeing that, as long as you have a good relationship, you should be able to say no or not yet, and think higher level, help them be that strategic advisor for these clients that they're looking for. And I have an anecdotal story for you. I'll be very quick. At the DAAC here, we have a whole bunch of consumer-facing tools that allow you to opt out of interest-based advertising. The agency that we work with, the UX agency, we were going to them with very project-specific work, and they pushed back at us and said, listen, let's, instead of having these small conversations, let's have a bigger conversation on what is the overall thing you're trying to do with your tools. And let's build a prototype for that instead. And that turned into a whole bunch of new work for that agency that we as a client wouldn't have thought about. So just being that strategic advisor could really pay off for your existing clients.
Wonderful insight. Thank you, Julie, and thank you to our panel here. In the interest of time, Sean, I'm going to hand it back to you, my friend, to talk about shifting services.
Where we've seen sort of the biggest shift over this last year. If you take a look at those metrics here, 2023 and 2024, the design and branding sort of making up 91% of what it is that was being offered by a lot of groups. That's dropping down to 84%. Strategy and consulting, that's actually bumped up over the past little bit. So that's actually gone up to 82%. So seeing massive growth there. Copywriting, Laura, I believe you mentioned it. That's obviously something where we're seeing a bit of a shift downwards as well. It's dropped by about 10%. Obviously, with the use of AI, that's certainly helping to push that. Lori, I'm going to put this one to you again. Sorry.
Yep.
How would you think that, I guess, the strategy demand, like, what would you say about what's driving that push for, I guess, more and more agencies to offer that? I mean, I've seen that in the data here, but even just in day-to-day conversations with folks, it's constantly coming up. Something as simple as adjusting rate cards to make sure that strategy is on there. We're seeing more and more of those asks. What do you think is driving that?
Yes, yes. Well, I think it is still one thing that agencies do very well, have the ability to take a step back and be objective for their clients. It's no secret that clients are becoming more self-sufficient in some of these other areas where they're choosing to dabble in design and branding and copywriting, and AI is fueling that as well. But quite honestly, I don't think they're very good at strategy because they're not objective. They have a difficult time stepping back and taking a look at what needs to be assessed in order to implement and create an appropriate strategy for accomplishing their goals. So, I think it is one of the things that we do very well. And I think it's one of the things that's going to continue to be in demand. And if you're not currently thinking highly about strategy, for every client that you come in contact with, I recommend that you do, because I think that it is a great way to increase revenue and provide something that clients don't do very well on their own.
Lori, thank you so much. You can see a couple questions in the chat here from Cindy and Ali. Folks, I'll be honest with you. This one's on me. I think I put the numbers on the slide. That should be inverse there. So we are definitely seeing that. Yeah, exactly, Jeff. Thank you so much. We're seeing that basically that trend jump up. So that's on me, guys. That's my apologies. That is a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old keeping me up all night. So my apologies. Let's jump over to the next slide, guys. And this is really sort of talking about that. Oh, there we go. That 3-year trend summary. So sort of taking a look just at a high level as to really what has changed over that 3 years. Again, we've noticed that revenue decline, right? So it continues to accelerate. Defensive pricing, again, 27% in 2023 with no increase, 52% with no increase at this point. In terms of strained workload, what we're seeing is that last year, 59% of folks were saying that they had a balanced workload. That's down to 36% at this point. And again, this could be the advent of artificial intelligence. This could be us, again, over-servicing folks. It's an issue, though. We're talking about the AI adoption exploding, that quality concern paradox that seems to be growing. And then over-servicing. I mean, this is something that we should to talk about every single year at this point. We always have a bit of an issue with, saying yes too often. We're all empathetic people. That's why we're in this industry. It's hard to say no sometimes. I'm going to put this one to Craig to start here. I guess looking at the summary, is there anything here that really resonates with you the most with your experience? Like out of all these trends, I guess which one would you say has had the biggest impact on how you've operated this last year?
Yeah, I think workload strained and the AI adoption exploded. I think those are going kind of hand in hand for us. I think um, AI is absolutely exploding, and we have clients coming to us saying, you know, we have an idea for whatever this type of video. We want it to be a spaceship in space or something, and we give them a price and we say it's going to be this much, and they go, well, we don't have that. Can't we do it in AI for much cheaper? And you're like, well, not really. And then you have sales going, come on, do it, do it, do it. So we're kind of in this balance of can we do it cheaper? We don't really know, and a lot of it depends on, again, the lack of control we have. So the workload strained piece kind of comes in because we're trying to make this. And we have a pretty complicated system that uses a whole bunch of different large language models and is really, I don't understand most of it. But the end point is no matter what you're putting in there, sometimes it just doesn't do. And there's nothing you can do to change that. A quick story I had that just happened yesterday. We're working through an AI project where it's a picture of a room, and the AI images that keep coming out are from the side, and we just want it to be straight on, not from the side. And the artist who's doing it has gone through over 100 different iterations of the same image, using different prompts to get it to just be head on and not from the side. And we haven't got it yet. It won't do it head on. So that lack of control that we no longer have when using AI tools is really making this project become something that, maybe if we did it the normal way where we have processes in place and we know exactly what we're doing, we've been doing it that way for 30 plus years, we would be done and it would be out the door. But because we're using this new way that is cheaper with less control, it's actually taking a lot longer and it's actually costing us a lot more. So I think those two hand in hand are really where we're finding, it's getting difficult to estimate. How do we estimate what this should be? Because we don't know what we're going to get out of it. So a lot of confusion, a lot of just trying to figure it out as we go along. But those two things in the 3-year summary, AI is just hands down probably the biggest shift in everything that will happen in my career, I assume. And we're right in the middle of trying to figure this out and what this world is going to look like 2 or 3 years from now with AI. And it is, we're right in the middle of it. We're figuring it out.
Very, very true. And it's funny, like bringing up the AI piece specifically. I think we've all heard the term AI slop. How that ties over to over servicing, this is just something that always kind of runs through my mind. But because it is so easy to produce content at this point, I worry that in terms of that over servicing trend, that even becomes a little bit larger because it is really easy for us just to sort of send that out. But then when the corrections come back, when the revisions come back, we're really sort of digging ourselves a hole. So if I can sort of impart one piece of knowledge for this entire webinar, it really is sort of going from that experimentation phase to that mastery phase right across the board, right? Like just making sure that what we're doing actually lands. We're sort of past that point of really just sort of poking holes. We really need to start focusing on what it is that we're delivering and making sure that it just has that level of quality that folks are expecting. Folks, I'm going to move over to the next slide here because I know in the interest of time, we want to make sure we're getting through this. But at a quick high level, just sort of taking a look at a snapshot again of what's changed from 2024 to 2025. Again, we've already gone through these metrics, but just sort of putting them there front and center. Revenue decline is stark. Price increase is stark. AI weekly and daily use is going up, but that quality concern has also jumped right up as well. So really, folks, this sort of leads into that core problem, right? This is what we've seen with the data. Folks are tracking more, but they're trusting that less, right? We've got 71% tracking, only 29% of folks saying that tracking is accurate. So that sort of leads into some of those AI quality concerns. Folks are adopting AI faster, but more and more people are worried about quality. Fragmented tools. Folks are accumulating tools. Well, like I accumulate model airplanes. That's a hobby of mine. I keep buying them. My wife hates it, but we're doing the same thing in the industry. We're just sort of purchasing tools after tool. 39% right now have 3+ siloed systems. teams are feeling strained, right? That could be corrections to artificial intelligence. It could be just, again, doing that over servicing. But part and parcel with that is those declining margins. We're working harder. Yeah, folks working overtime. We're pulling in contractors. That all starts eating into that margin. Julie, I'm going to put this one to you first. With a lot of these issues here, would you say it's a maturity issue? Do you think agencies are trying to operate like enterprises without the systems and discipline needed? Or do you think there's something else?
Yeah, I would say it's probably a maturity issue, a growing issue here. When you position yourself as maybe a strategic partner or trying to lead these clients, you want to make sure you have some clear scope, some defined policies. I saw in the chat there, I'm glad to see some agencies are taking this seriously. Consistent documentation could help with some of these issues. Financial rigor as well, maybe some duplication if you're using 3 or more tools, perhaps that's maybe 1 or 2 too many. And then having that internal training on processes and making sure that, again, documenting everything, especially around the data governance practices. I saw some notes around privacy in the chat. That's my bread and butter. And it's really important that you are keeping track of what information you're sharing on these types of platforms. Make sure you're paying for the levels that won't build into the training model, because especially if you're using sensitive personal information or sensitive financial information in these models, it can be used elsewhere. So yes, privacy, getting some expertise training in-house. I know everyone's really busy, but I can't stress enough that attending events and learning seminars around that are relevant to your particular agency are incredibly important. So yeah, really interesting information here around the fragmentation that AI has introduced to this market.
Julie, I'm actually going to come right back to you. There was a question I wanted to ask specifically about AI adoption, right up your wheelhouse, because I think even with some of the questions in the chat, this does start touching on it. In terms of that AI conversation around the industry, is there another conversation happening around AI ethics and those best practices around it that you're seeing?
Yes, it's interesting that I'm seeing a lot from the marketer's angle. So the Canadian Marketing Association, for example, the CMA in Canada here, they have a guide on AI for marketers, and it outlines ethical considerations, so governance frameworks, it talks about practical implementation, it has checklists, and it covers human oversight, ensuring that there's some principles in place around human oversight and transparency and fairness and bias mitigation. It talks about data privacy and security, which I keep harping on, and then accountability, of course, in AI use. So definitely have a look at the Canadian Marketing Association's AI guide. They also have a generative AI readiness survey that you can take with your client. Super interesting work happening in the marketing sector. The Association of Canadian Advertisers, IAB Canada as well. I know IAB in the US has been doing work on having AI resource centers. So funny that it's not really a focus for a lot of agency associations right now. I expect that will change. I know in Quebec, an association called A2C is working on some codes around use of AI, but it seems to be a lot of the governance side of things are coming from the marketer's angle right now.
Which is amazing to see. I mean, like, it's one of those things that could certainly benefit them the quickest, but it's nice to see that folks are really starting to police it. Tons of resources out there. It just sounds fantastic. Julie, thank you so much. Folks, in the interest of time here, I know we've been sort of talking about how these, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's been some negative trends in 2025. We don't want to end this sort of on that gloomy note, right? Because one of the first things we mentioned was, if you can name the problem, you can help solve it. Luckily enough, I mean, we're in a position here that we do get to work with agencies that are also incredibly successful. I mean, Craig at TRG is certainly one of them. So not only are we sort of highlighting some of these issues that we've seen, we're also able to really sort of highlight some of the best practices that we've seen across these groups or what makes them successful. I'm going to actually pass it over to Alec to run through some of the traits that we're seeing in terms of these high performing agencies, like who really won in 2025 and what did they do?
Yeah, thanks. And as Sean mentioned, it's something new we put together this year based on the findings from the industry report. This is like an inventory of the top traits of high-performing agencies for 2026. This is in part in the interest of having a rubric that agencies can measure against to assess performance, but also serving as a checklist for agencies that are looking to improve performance. And I will take us through the traits in just a sec, but I will say if the content of these traits resonates with you or your team, or you're curious to see how these findings apply specifically to your workflows and challenges, please know that we at Function Software would love to explore it with you. So I would encourage you to click the Let's Talk button on your screen. We can have a quick discussion or demo tailored to your agency. That said, based on the data from our 2026 industry report, we found that high-performing agencies consistently share the following traits. So first is financial precision. So high performers track project profitability in real time, maintain clear margin visibility, produce regular financial reports, and forecast revenue beyond 3 months. Next is integrated systems. As a refresher, 39% of agencies operate with 3 or more siloed systems, but high-performing agencies consolidate them. So they're not, or they are relying on integrated platforms. They're avoiding juggling those 3 or more disconnected systems, right? Looking for an opportunity to maybe eliminate 1 or 2. And when onboarding new technology, they're prioritizing integration capability. Next, data accuracy. So as a reminder, 70% of agencies reported tracking time, but only 29% trust that time data's accuracy. And that gap is enormous. So high-performing agencies focus on data accuracy before optimization, treat time tracking as a strategic input, and use that data to actively adjust resourcing and delivery. Next, client boundaries. The top agencies define deliverables clearly, address vague expectations early, use structured change management, and treat boundaries as professional discipline. A reminder here, folks, over-servicing erodes margins and trust, but boundaries protect both. A big one on the list is strategic use of AI. And to no one's surprise, really, the top performers have moved beyond curiosity into competency. They may be encouraging AI for their teams, but importantly, invest in training best practices, as well as establishing quality controls with a focus on integrations that improve outcomes. Next is focused services. A reminder that expanding service menus, high performers are refining them. So they're leaning into strategy, differentiating through clarity and expertise, and competing on strategic partnership. And then lastly, here, sustainable workload. High-performing agencies monitor workload balance actively. They're using forecasting and resource planning and recognizing that link between utilization drops and burnout. So there we have it. 7 top traits we identified this year, and I know I just breezed through them very, very quickly as we're short on time, but you will be able to revisit these with a recording going out alongside the webinar here. I do encourage you to commit even just 5 minutes on the exercise of seeing how your agency stacks up against the checkboxes on each of those slides there. And hey, if your agency isn't yet checking off all the boxes, it means there's opportunities for improvement. And again, if you are curious at all about how Function Software can help, we'd love to have a chat or a demo tailored to your agency. Again, you can click that Let's Talk button at the bottom of your screen. That said, Sean, we have effectively reached the end here, but I know you and our audience might have some lingering questions here, so I will pass it over to you for our Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alec. Much appreciated. Right, folks. Yeah, we're going to open it up to just general Q&A. Give it a pause here in the chat. So, folks, if there's any sort of questions that we have for our panelists, for myself or Alec, go ahead and throw it in the chat there. And while we're waiting here, I guess the one thing that I will sort of mention in terms of that AI piece, I think as folks are thinking about it more and more, just give you a bit of an analog from what we do here. I mean, AI can really be approached in a couple ways, can it? Like, there's folks that are sort of looking at it as something to produce content. There's folks that are looking at it as a way to sort of drive what we're putting out into the world in a quicker manner. Something a lot of folks don't oftentimes consider is actually using that for internal processes as well. So what can we do? Like, what sort of friction points do we just have in our day-to-day operations that could potentially be mitigated through the use of AI? I mean, a perfect example of that are some of the folks that are using, many fragmented tools. Of course, we'd love to see it come over to a product like Function Point or Function Fox, where it is, an end-to-end solution. But failing that, are there ways that we can use AI to start tying those systems together? Just something for folks to consider. But there's definitely more than one way to use it. And we just hope that folks are experimenting as much as possible with it. But yeah, trying to push towards that mastery, obviously. For the panelists, any further comments from you all just about the AI sort of push in the industry in general, or any of the trends that we've talked about?
I don't have anything specific other than I think that it is a part of our lives now. Something we have to really consider carefully and appropriately. It kind of came at us, like a speeding train, and we weren't quite sure whether to jump in front of it or get out of the way.
Yeah.
I think we've all kind of settled on the fact that we have to get on this train and just really be diligent about how we embrace and utilize AI in whatever way we choose to use it in our agency. But, just like with digital, when it first came out, got to stay on top of that information, stay on top of those trends and those changes. And it's going to be even faster than it was with digital media. So this is the biggest change I think I've experienced in my career in this industry, which spans 30 years. So I'm really interested to see how all of this kind of continues to evolve.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I completely agree with Lori. I think one of the main things that we're seeing is with all the worry, I guess, in our industry about it replacing people and replacing humans, specifically from the creative side, I think there's just no replacement for the human touch in creative, in coming up with these concepts and coming up with creative strategy and coming up with the images themselves or the videos themselves. I think we're just finding the more and more we use it, we would love for it to be this magic bullet where you just hit a button and out comes this amazing piece of work. But the more we dig into it, the more we're finding it's not the case. And I don't know if it will ever be there or not. And that is, I think, kind of why so much is up in the air right now, because no one wants to take the people out of the arts. But the good news that we're kind of finding is that I don't know if it's capable of ever doing that. So, we'll see it here next year, and the story may change. But, as of right now, the people are the most important piece still.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig.
I'll just end by saying the report, by the way, the report is so well written. I really enjoyed reading it. There's a great quote: "The growth challenges in 2025 aren't rooted in a lack of opportunity. They stem from the strain of execution." So if AI helps you with that execution, great. If it doesn't, don't rely on it completely. I fully agree with the other panelists here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. Ken, you've actually got one there that is product specific. So AI integration is really helping to tie various tools together. What are function points AI integrations to help with our workflows? I'll be honest with you, Ken, we haven't addressed AI in the product yet. We're trying to focus on a very intentional way of doing it. A lot of the conversation today has revolved around, I don't want to say AI slop, but sort of basically just experimenting with AI just for the sake of experimenting it. And what we really need to do in 2026 is push towards that mastery. That's what we're looking to do as well. What I will say is that we do have one very specific roadmap item that is being done very intentionally. We're going to see some news about that in May. I don't want to give too much away, but it is incorporating AI into the system to essentially help with some of the reporting that we're doing. That is coming. But again, we're sort of taking a look at a very, very intentional way of doing this. We don't just want to add it for the sake of adding it. There's a lot of platforms out there that are doing right now. It's not really adding any value whatsoever. So we're being careful with how it's being approached. It is coming though. Alec, I'm not sure if you had anything you wanted to add to that from a product perspective on your side.
Nope, Sean, you hit the nail on the head there. So you can expect some more news in the pipe from us, hopefully by our next webinar, if not just afterward. But we've got some product news coming. I'm conscious though that we are short on time here, so maybe we can wrap up. We've also had some closing thoughts. So I do want to say just to everyone who's still attending here, we appreciate you all tuning in, and a huge thank you to our panelists, Lori Mikas, Craig Cardellino, Julie Ford, for sharing your expertise and your insights. Sean, anything else from you? Otherwise, we can wrap up.
No, nothing else on my side. Again, thank you so much for the panelists. Just lovely to always have you guys here. Thanks for everyone that attended. We'll have this webinar out shortly, I believe it is, and hopefully some other content as well. If you haven't downloaded the guide yet, please make sure you do so. You can always follow up with us afterwards. And if there's any sort of questions whatsoever, if you're a current customer, even a prospect, go ahead and shoot us an email. Function Point side, you can just email, oh geez, you can go ahead on the Function Fox side, email staycreative@functionpoint.com. And Alec, why am I blanking on our general email address for Function Point?
I don't know, Sean, you should know it by heart. But worst case, you can always also email us at support@functionpoint.com or directly get your CSM or through our website. We'd be happy to connect with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alec. I appreciate it. I need
No
far
worries.
more coffee today. Yeah, Sydney, we will get that. We'll get that guide to you with the follow up for this webinar as well.
All right.
Okay, folks.
Well, until
thank
next
you so
time,
much.
then. Yeah, we'll say take care. Happy Wednesday, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.